Right. The meeting is called to order. Will the secretary please take the.
Trustee Bloom. Trustee Wilkie. Here. Trustee Fox. No.
Trustee Foss here.
Trustee Galloway. Trustee Rogers. Trustee Young.
Here's a point of order. This is executive order Johnson is in DC as part of the scheduled ALA funded lobbying fly-in meeting with congressional delegation related to federal budget committees related to the libraries. And that is the reason for her absence on this evening. Is there a motion to approve trustee Foss's remote participation for this meeting?
So,
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed say nay. It's approved. All right. First up is approval of our minutes related to our January and February board meetings. Any questions or corrections that need to be referred to in the minutes? Yeah. Is there a motion to approve both sets of minutes from both January and February regular board meeting?
So moved.
Ted, you second?
I'm sorry.
Ted, you second? Moderator, we have a motion.
I'll second.
Second by Suzanne. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Those opposed, say nay. Yeah. Those were approved, that were, and those minutes do include the attachment of text from Rebecca Levin that was read at the beginning of the meeting that was not captured by the audio recording. Those are added to the meetings for the February section. I saw a few people sign up on the second page and I grabbed that for public meeting. We'll see with public comments that those who have signed up in person, and then I will read all the comments that were received via our web form and via email. First up is Jennifer Moore.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jennifer Norborg, and I am the Children's Services Manager here at the Oak Park Public Library. I share the following thoughts on behalf of myself, Genevieve Grove, our Supervising Librarian of Children's Services, and Shelley Harris, our Early Childhood Librarian. The three of us are Oak Park residents who have worked at the library for over 19, 15, and 17 years respectively, under 3, and in my case, under 4 executive directors. We are writing to express our support for Jocelyn Rowley Dixon. We have known Jocelyn professionally for many years and have witnessed her exceptional leadership and dedication during her tenure as OPPL's current executive director. We are united in our belief that despite some recent claims, the majority of library staff are not miserable all or even most of the time. In fact, we believe that Jocelyn has played a large part in improving staff morale. Since assuming the role of executive director, Jocelyn has led the library with grace, intelligence, and humor, and has made great strides advocating for its development and ensuring its financial well-being. She has developed community ties in multiple ways and has been the most transparent and accessible director we have ever worked with. And forgive me while I take a sip. In the past, we could go many months without interacting with the library's director. Most would spend the majority of their time in the admin wing and would very rarely be seen in other parts of our building or at the branches. From the start, Jocelyn has made it a priority to be visible and accessible to staff. She led monthly all-staff town hall meetings after board meetings in order to share information. She set up quarterly meetings with HR to discuss staff well-being and moral feedback with us, and she would answer questions. When staffing is changed, directors now explain why and how the changes were done. Jocelyn is present, she listens, and she has made many positive changes. We feel very lucky to have a director who is engaged, experienced, passionate, well-respected, and invested in the values to which OPPL is committed. Our many years here have given us unique context and perspective on the library and its leaders. The roots of the problems we are facing today have been present for some time. Jocelyn did not inherit a library in pristine, unassailable condition, and she has had to make difficult decisions. If one department has different understanding and working definitions of programming than others, it can lead to misunderstandings and pain like seen now. This is a problem that has now been recognized, and we acknowledge that there is a need for a library-wide collaborative discussion to ensure all staff move forward with the same understanding and expectations to avoid harm in the future. Additionally, the library's deficit spending began prior to Jocelyn's hiring and is a situation she has made strides in ameliorating. Jocelyn has been creative in finding new revenue streams, such as our pop-up shop and her current plan to create a library foundation. Despite budget issues, our administration has found ways to support all staff, including expanded leave time and continued support for work-life balance. However, it is also true that as attrition occurs, individual job duties have had to be shifted in order to maximize existing resources. Leadership team members have had to take on multiple roles. Positions have been combined. Every vacancy is being carefully considered before rehiring, and departing staff are asked for their thoughts on how their responsibilities might be best fulfilled after they leave. Lateral staffing shifts have happened many times under multiple directors and are often upsetting and frustrating. However, they are also sometimes necessary, and I see you telling me I don't have much time, and I will speak quickly, but please let me finish. Most recently and most publicly, these lateral shifts have affected the community engagement team. Tatiana Swansea was an exemplary colleague with incredible passion and unique skills. We have great admiration and respect for her, and all three of us are deeply saddened that she has left the library. Due in part to this situation, other staff members that we respect and consider friends are hurting and angry. Members of our community are hurting and angry. These feelings are valid and understandable. Harm has been done. But the values Oak Park has come to expect from our library are not changing. All librarians do engage with our community. All librarians do consider anti-racism and equity in their work. These are the core principles and our promise to our village now and in the future. Jocelyn has said to staff that she recognizes this harm and she knows that there is trust that needs to be repaired. She has offered a sincere apology for her role in this harm. We believe that she will move forward with repairing that trust with the community and with staff. It will take time, but meaningful repair takes time and trust on all sides. There are multiple stories, perspectives, and opinions about this situation being shared widely online. Some are shared without context, some are misinformation or even disinformation. It is disappointing and stressful to see how many smart and caring community members have attached themselves passionately to this discussion without proper consideration of their sources and their potential bias or lack of complete information. As children's librarians, one of our crucial responsibilities is to promote digital literacy to young people and to teach them that online content must be carefully scrutinized in order to determine its veracity. It is disappointing to witness adults in our community ignore these best practices and repeat and amplify rumors and untruths. As Oak Parkers and Oak Park librarians, we are dismayed to see such vitriol from our neighbors. There seems to be nothing that could convince some people that blanket statements about the library and library staff are not and could never be completely true. Additionally, there is a very vocal minority who have disparaged Jocelyn's integrity and maligned her on a personal level that is disheartening in a community that prides itself on being inclusive and understanding. Staff members have received hateful messages. Sexist, racist, and cruel actions like these stand in the way of repair and are especially disappointing when they are voiced by those who claim to embrace restorative justice. Over the last year, Jocelyn has given a full picture of who she is as a person and leader. She is not perfect. She is human. She has made visible, demonstrable progress for staff, the library, and the community. Looking at her tenure as a whole, we feel that Jocelyn is the best director this library has had. We thank the board for their work during the long and difficult process of selecting the new director, and we commend them for having the wisdom to select Jocelyn Bowling-Dixon. We look forward to her continued leadership in the years to come. Yours sincerely, Jennifer Norborg, Genevieve Rowe, and Shelley Harris. Thank you.
Susan Lucci.
So here we are at a crossroads in the 120-year history of our library. All of us are both stewards and stakeholders. I've been asking myself a lot, who are we now in this moment that feels like an existential crisis? History reveals that Oak Park has had racist and inequitable chapters over the past century, which is why our library community has been diligently working for the past decade to walk the talk of our vision and our mission to become an equitable and anti-racist organization that is truly for everyone. We aspire to empower every voice and in so doing connect and build community. This is what I love about this place. By the way, Susan Lucci, I'm a resident for 27 years here. I brought my 3 children when this building was the beautiful old building. So I deeply love this place and all it stands for. We may call ourselves a book sanctuary, but I wonder whether we are providing sanctuary for human beings to work and to gather. Going backwards is certainly possible, and it seems obvious the direction we're headed under current leadership. My question is this choice intentional? No matter how many emails I get attesting equity or how impressive the impact reports seem at first glance, anyone that knows what's real and what's restorative knows that the anti-racism strategic plan of 2021 is absolutely not being followed here right now. Given the insidious nature of racism and the current climate in the United States, this backwards movement is not shocking, but it is quite disheartening. And it's also antithetical to our heralded strategic plan, what Oak Park stands for, and why I continue to choose to live here. I just bought a house here again. Do we get to vote on this, or are we letting someone who clearly doesn't understand or care about our mission decide who we are and what we stand for? So since last July, I've been communicating my very serious concerns to the board. Do you know how many library staff members reach out to me on a daily basis, asking me to be here to speak out and sharing to me why they're so terrified that they cannot be here tonight? It's really heartbreaking. I don't know if you can truly sense the culture of fear and taste the mistrust that has been sown here. Something very different is at work. This is not who we are, I hope, or is it? Why don't we already have a transparent process in place so staff can share their experiences? Why has it taken so long to perform the ED's annual review? And why is our system set up so that one person can seize complete control over communication, effectively silencing people so that you don't know these things? Speak when spoken to sounds old school to me and definitely not empower all voices. In fact, it really reminds me of my earliest library memories of being shushed. Libraries to me, I'm older than y'all, places where we had to be quiet and be shushed. I'm afraid that we're returning there. And I thought we had come such a long way. I personally have heard more than enough evidence over the last 9 months to question the leadership and ask for change. Listening to our courageous community members share their own experiences of discrimination in connection with the Palestinian cultural event a couple weeks ago certainly gave us way more than enough for us to know we need new leadership here. While I have been urging you to create a safe way to hear staff concerns, my burning question I bring to you tonight is how many stories evidencing harm and poor judgment do we need to hear before we take action? If dozens are not enough, do we need hundreds? Must the harm be unanimously felt to be wrong? And I wonder what the tipping point is that's going to finally move us to do the right thing. Finally, witnessing the embarrassing reactions of the ED and the DD these past weeks, I beg you to stop the harm now. At a bare minimum, why aren't we placing them on leave while you do your review? And I also agree with many others, I know you have letters there tonight and in the community who are calling for their resignation. We demand better leadership. So who are we now? This moment in history is ours to live through. I sure hope and pray that our decisions move that arc of the moral universe forward towards justice. Thanks for listening to me.
Herbert.
Hi, my name is Paige Herbert, and I just, I was here last meeting, and there are still some questions that have gone unanswered, and I also wanted to just voice that the social media that has been posted online actually started because of the executive director and what she posted on the library site. That is what started everybody chiming in. So I think that needs to be noted. One other thing that I wanted to mention is there was the FOIA that we still have no answer regarding the FOIA. We've been told that it's standard procedure that attorneys look it over and they are the decision makers when it comes to the FOIA, but it has to be submitted by someone. So we're assuming that Susie Wolf was the one that submitted the FOIA, and Layla's FOIA came back all blacked out, and the other recipient's FOIA was not. And we really would like an answer for that, and we would like you to consider that when you are reviewing the executive director in your meeting after a closed meeting. That's it. Thank you.
Melissa.
Alapsi.
I apologize. Thank you.
Thanks. I was also here at the last meeting, and here I am again. You heard, thank you, our statements from last time, so I don't want to be redundant. But things have happened since the last board meeting, right? I do want to say that I was one of the organizers of the Palestinian Culture Day event. I have firsthand information of facts and what has transpired since. I have been harmed by the actions of both ED and DD through this. I get to say if an apology is genuine. I get to say if I accept it or not. An apology, I think everybody knows this, requires a statement of what the harm was, to whom, what is going to be done to remedy that and to prevent it from happening in the future. We saw none of that. So I don't know if that should be called an apology or not. I heard a lot of statements of support from first commenter. It almost feels like we're talking about different people. That's not what we're seeing from the responses posted online. So I'm not sure what's going on, but it feels very strange. Since last time that I was here, other events have happened at the library. For example, the Lunar New Year celebration happened. That calendar event was tagged multicultural, as it should be. There was no non-library led tag. It was promoted on social media. It was added formally to the calendar. It was pictures were posted on the library's social media channels, right? This event is identical to the Palestinian Culture Day. We're still looking for an answer. Why was that event treated differently? Another event that I'm also an organizer of, the Arab American Heritage Day celebration. It's coming up in April. It's already been submitted through the same multicultural forum. That event already posted on the calendar, multicultural tag, no non-library led tag. Why the difference? We need an answer to that. Why was the Palestinian Day treated differently? We are needing you to do the right thing. We need these answers. It's very objective what happened. There's a narrative of confusion. Nobody has been confused. None of the organizers have been confused. There has been no miscommunication. The actions of the distancing, the terms of their sensitivity, we're talking about culture. We want an explanation of why the Palestinian Day event was treated differently. Thank you.
Kim Milinovich.
Good evening, members of the board, members of the community. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I have lived in Oak Park with my family for over 10 years. In full disclosure, I have commented on anti-Arab discrimination at the high school, where my son is a student, a member of MENA, and was present at the board meeting last week when my wife addressed the concerns surrounding the Palestinian cultural event. I am here today to talk about the library fact checker page that is still up on the website. This page claims to keep the community updated on sound resources and guides them away from misinformation. That is what it claims. Instead, however, it uses the library logo, name, and credibility to reframe genuine concerns from community members and library staff regarding library leadership currently under investigation, and reframes them into hyperbolized straw man arguments. Stunningly, the fact checker did not address this investigation or many of the factual comments that were made at the meeting last week, such as the evidential redacted emails that were just mentioned. This fact checker page is also not in keeping with the message, tone or message of the letter from the board or from the apology from the ED that followed that meeting. For me, this fact checker page, if we want to call it that, raises more questions than it provides answers. The first question is, who benefits from this? Who benefits from this content and reframing of the information? Certainly not the community members or the library staff who have raised concerns over the last several weeks. The narrative framing benefits those who are currently under investigation. So this is more personal and political than it is public works. That raises other questions. Who commissioned this? Who paid for this? Who decided on this page that the executive director should be the contact person for all inquiries? Is that not a conflict of interest for leaders under investigation? If one wished to address these concerns, valid concerns, want to take part in this engagement, in this communication, in this dialogue, why not through the Wednesday Journal, like the rest of us have to? Why use the library's own page against library staff and community members? This is a misuse of public funds. It is a misuse of public resources, and is a misappropriation of public trust. This is even more problematic since whoever wrote this is or are librarians. They know the power and the value of knowledge and information. This is unprofessional, it is unethical, and it is unacceptable. I ask that the fact checker page and its content in its current format be removed as the investigation proceeds. And the board should add the content of this fact checker page and its origins to their ongoing investigation. Thank you.
Very good, Slide.
Good evening. As was the case 2 weeks ago, I'm Karen Van Slyke. I'm chair of the Oak Park-based Committee for Just Peace of Palestine, Israel, and I've lived here for 40 years. First of all of us who work to co-sponsor the Palestinian cultural event here at the celebration here at the library want to thank the board for taking swift action after issues were brought to your attention a couple of weeks ago. We very much appreciated the letter that you sent out, taking responsibility for the actions that were taken incorrectly around the cultural event, and you set a path forward for investigation and for remedying the harm. And we're grateful for that. This is why I and others are so stunned at a parallel campaign that seems to be being waged through the library's own communication process. The very day that the recorded part of the recorded meeting from 2 weeks ago was launched, at the same time, on the library's own Facebook page, it was something that appeared to be a response. And part of it turns out to have been so egregious in terms of its commentary that it then got taken out and then reposted somewhere else. It seems to us and to me that this board set one path, and then library communication is being used to give counter arguments or to give a case. The second thing I was going to mention, but has been gone into great detail here, is this library fact check page. This is so inappropriate to be launching some kind of campaign that raises red herrings about what happened at the meeting a couple of weeks ago and tries to deflect really what the core concerns were about the Palestinian cultural celebration. And then the third thing that has come from the library was another letter. And this time the letter was from the ED, and the letter was phrased as an apology. Now, when you're trying to remedy harm, I don't understand it. And people who got that letter, who know that I've been a little involved in these discussions, said to me, what's going on? Who was harmed? What was the harm? Nothing was stated. It was all generalizations. Well, that's not taking responsibility. That's deflecting. The letter said, I want to do better. Fine, we all want to do better. But what I'm trying to point at here is a systematic use of the trust in this library, in this institution, and its publications or its email list to do a campaign pretty much counter to what you guys set out the last time. So I think there has to be accountability for this. Everybody who was involved in those efforts, everybody in the administration of the library was involved in undermining you, the board, our elected representatives. Thank you.
There, you had a question mark next to no. It was there, okay. Asra Syed.
Hello, my name is Asra Syed, and I am a homeowner in walking distance of this library. And so many of us, we've heard already about how upset and confused we are about the hostilities and inconsistencies coming from the executive director. Today, what I want to talk about is following up on what Tim was saying, but it has to do with a timeline that reveals such a disconnect between your message as a board and the executive director's message. I voted for each and every one of you proudly, happily. And I've seen really good work from most of you towards our community. And so when I saw that apology that you sent to our community, I was cautiously optimistic. I was hopeful. I figured a volunteer board doing this for the good of our community was well-intentioned. I figured you were going to do more. You made a sincere apology and promised to do better for to help marginalized members of our community, especially the Palestinian, Arab, Muslim community members, feel safe in our library again. I believed you. I still want to believe you. Yet, within a day, I believe, of your messaging, the library's website added multiple items to this fact checker, which we can only infer comes directly from the executive director, as she most certainly controls the output both on Facebook and on the library's website. So we get an apology from you, and then this fact checker undermines everything you had acknowledged, the harm you've acknowledged, taking ownership and promising to do better. These promises that you made to our community, especially our Muslim community, were immediately discarded by the library's executive director, whom you still have not chosen to place on any form of administrative leave, paid or unpaid, and are allowing to represent us nationally as we speak. Even after she has used the community's public resource, our webpage that is meant to spread information, she's used it blatantly and egregiously to defend herself and imply that both the community and her staff are to blame, not her and her deputy director. If this is the transparency that her supportive colleagues speak of, I remain unconvinced. She is the one spreading the misinformation. She started it on Facebook and she continued it on our community's website. The items in this fact checker oversimplify the community's concerns. And worse, it appears that our library head is unaware of one of the most obvious elements of media literacy: fact versus opinion. Something children are taught around 4th grade. She attempted to disprove, quote, a culture of fear among her staff, stating it in all caps as false. With some purposely convoluted data she provides about some surveys that make no sense to the community, she thinks she can disprove opinions that disapprove of her. That is opinion, not fact. She also claims she never discouraged staff from speaking to the media. She is quoted in the Wednesday Journal as saying that if other staff were speaking to the news media, they really should not be, and that they really aren't authorized to. So of course, we're only seeing staff members who approve of her speaking today. She also claims, I mean, the list of facts are skewed and it could go on and on. Tim did a wonderful job. Back to this incredible, unbelievable timeline. After all this hostility and confusion posted inappropriately on our community's public website to defend her and her deputy director's countless missteps, I was shocked that the board didn't put her on leave then. Instead, a few days later, we saw what seems like a 180. An overdue, but insincere apology from the executive director, contrary in tone to her own messaging on the fact checker website that remains, an email that reads more like a pathetic attempt to say whatever she needs to in order to appease and keep her job. So, which version of this executive director are we supposed to trust? The one who posted hostile defensive messages on Facebook and took them down? On our community's website that are still up, undermining the credibility of our entire institution? Or the person belatedly sending an apology after doubling down and tripling down on lies she and her deputy director told about the harm they caused? She's lost any credibility she may have ever had. And only exasperates the lack of safety I now feel when I walk into this library. There are some excellent Muslim and Arab American heritage programs in the works here at the library, but I no longer feel safe attending those events. I don't want to be here anymore. And that's something I need you all to change. For me, for my fellow community members who feel marginalized and disrespected and discriminated against. I feel like I still believe that you have the ability to do something, but it needs to happen now. Thank you.
Read the comments submitted online. I'm Thomas Patasic, an Oak Park homeowner and library user since 2005. My career started in a job at the King County Library System, and I started a successful company out of the Oak Park Public Library. I value libraries and our library in particular. It is one of the crown jewels in Oak Park. I write today regarding recent apologies by the Oak Park Public Library, one from the trustees and another from the executive director concerning unspecified harms caused by the library. These vague apologies have led to widespread gossip, confusion, and anger. OPPL must now clarify the specific harms referenced in their apologies to dispel this growing unrest. The current ambiguity suggests a selective dialogue with activists and creates a perception that you're overlooking the broader community's voice. One additional harm that OPPL has now created is village drama. Thankfully, that harm is easily repaired. Please explain the recent apologies publicly and in detail at this meeting. Heather McCann Watts. Dear OPPL board members, I'm a career librarian, recently retired and former employee at OPPL. I know Jocelyn personally as a colleague and as a friend. We first met when she worked in circulation at OPPL many years ago, and I was the children's librarian. She came back to work again for us because she loves this community. I understand a lot of the inner workings and culture at OPPL, and it is the most progressive library I've ever had the privilege of working at. The fact that over 400 people came to the Palestinian cultural event speaks volumes about our library's commitment to DEI programming. I call that a successful event, and I am proud to live in a village that honors our Palestinian neighbors and friends when these types of events are not really happening elsewhere. We are leading the way nationally with a 5-star library designation and innovative programming. As a former library director, I know how quickly mistakes, misunderstandings, and miscommunication can spiral into rampant speculation, unfounded accusations, and inaccurate information. There are private personal issues at stake, so there is context and nuance we may not understand publicly. It's important to note that Jocelyn has only been at OPPL for a few months. We owe her a lot of grace and understanding with the situation she inherited. Libraries value honest and well-informed discourse, so I urge all of you to take a balanced and tempered perspective. Jocelyn had been unfairly and unkindly slandered repeatedly. She's been simultaneously mocked for crying and criticized for not showing emotion, which is a sexist way of knocking down women in leadership roles. She has been called names and insulted by people who profess to support marginalized voices, but their actions are silencing a Black woman leader who does not deserve this disrespectful treatment. We are very lucky to have her caliber of leadership. Last week on February 24th, she was the guest reader at Lewis Elementary for Black History Month. Yet no media that was written about her going above and beyond in service of our community then. The recent apology was a heartfelt one, and she was open to hearing everyone's perspective. We need to reflect our shared values as a community and listen to each other, share accurate and factual information, and treat each other with kindness and respect. Please support your new hire because she's a terrific leader with the vast majority of the staff and the community support with open arms. Heather McGavin thoughts. Blair Manucci. Dear Oak Park Library Trustees, I am writing to you today in support of your Executive Director, Jocelyn Bowman Dixon, and your Deputy Director, Stephen Wolf. It feels very harmful that this board has sat by and allowed the public to make false and damaging statements online about these two women. As a longtime resident of Oak Park, regular library user, and librarian myself, I find it a glaring red flag when a board does not support their employees, particularly the executive team. Much of what has transpired online has been allowed to run unchecked, and the overreactive board apologies are unsatisfactory and damaging. My understanding is that the event in question was well attended, and that a few activists were angry that it was not a library run and library promoted program. Disgruntled employees took advantage of the chaos to cast suspicions on the executive team and the intent of it remaining a public event only. Instead of standing behind the executive team, this board has over apologized to the small faction of the public for causing perceived harm, but does not appear to have offered that level of support to the library staff. While I do not claim to know the inner HR issues of the library, I think many of us residents find all of this confusing and fairly obviously a matter that should have been handled internally. I would encourage the board to approve clear, lasting policies going forward for the definition of library versus community events, and to make an effort to learn how to better support the staff. Thank you for your time, Blair Levucci. Carol J. Daw. This is my second submittal. Please use this version. There is a typo. As a former Oak Park resident in 2016 to 2018, a library professional of almost 40 years, and a director at two public library cooperative consortia, I am concerned about the current situation at the Oak Park Public Library. I've had a professional relationship with Jocelyn Bowman Dixon since 2011, when she was the youth services manager at the West Chicago Library District, and I was the director of the Library Integrated Network Consortium, members that are now part of SWAN. I moved away to be the director of the Lakeland Library Cooperative in Grand Rapids, Michigan in 2018. In this role, I specialized in board development and training, director coaching, recruiting, strategic planning, and other support for 42 public libraries in 8 counties. I mention all of this because it is critical that library boards and directors know their roles. I know this is a difficult time, but I would like to remind the board that although you serve the public, you represent the library, and your most important role is to provide oversight and not day-to-day management of the library board staff. Difficult decisions come and go for every library director, especially in the early days when the culture, climate, and ecosystem may be tumultuous. Resistance to change, differences in leadership style, and other factors can cause mild and major issues between staff and the director. Support is what is needed. Support for the director is crucial. I urge you to reflect on what is truly best for the library and your role as board in the circumstances. Principles and policies for governance, leadership, equity, and fairness must be applied at all levels, and not only when it's convenient or when there is pressure from various sides. Everyone should be heard, but only one person can lead, and that is the director. They must be given the chance to do so, even when the situation is difficult to navigate or understand, and all are not in agreement. This is important in the present and in future situations, and it will be difficult to repair or restore if it isn't addressed fairly and fully. Thank you for your time, Carol Dahl. Anthony Clark. Letter demanding the resignation of Oak Park Public Library Executive Director Jocelyn Olmsted to the Oak Park Public Library Board of Trustees. As an Oak Park community member and longtime OPPL collaborator, it has become apparent that the immediate resignation of OPPL Executive Director Jocelyn Olmsted is necessary due to her demonstrably failed leadership in fostering diversity, equity, and inclusion within the library and broader community. An executive director's role is to operate an organization within the context of the board's governing policies. An executive director is an extension of a board, and an executive director's actions represent a board, as well as the organization each serves. This past week, both the library board as well as the library's executive director issued apologies due to actions and communications by the executive director that led to widespread harm. These actions and communications include isolating the community engagement team by removing said team from leading equity and anti-racism initiatives, utilizing insensitive language towards historically marginalized groups by referring to individuals experiencing homelessness as hobos, a derogatory term, citing budget constraints for the reason for firing Tatiana Swanee and then reposting the position in a manner contradictory to the library's anti-racism strategic plan. Failing to take accountability and apologizing when staff members expressed harm caused to them. Initially taking a defensive stance when community members communicated harm caused by the handling of the Palestinian culture events. Claiming that the library's current multicultural event coordinator failed to properly communicate the nature of the Palestinian cultural event when verified communications revealed otherwise. Fostering an environment of fear and retaliation based on reports of current and former staff members. Leading an organization that now has fake social media accounts with clear internal information regarding past events, speaking for the library, harassing community members that have voiced their concerns. Negligence in reopening library building following a bomb threat without clearance from trained professionals, unnecessarily placing library staff and community in potential harm's way. The above actions alone are unacceptable, and as a community stakeholder, I believe demand for leadership change is appropriate. OPPL requires leadership that creates a fair and empowering environment for all staff, library patrons, and community members, in which the best of the library's ability to feel supported and valued. In her recent public apology, Director Dixon stated that she was committed to repairing harm. In the library board's recent public apology, the board members stated that the board was ready to repair relationships damaged. There are times when engaging in repairing that current part is not salvageable, and attempting to repair and keep the same part that will not fix the larger connected problems that faulty part has created. In this instance, Director Dixon's part in causing harm has now led to larger connected problems that has created an inability for the library as a whole to strive for and reconnect to past empowering operations. Therefore, I call on the Board of Trustees to act swiftly and decisively. I urge you to demand Director Dixon's resignation and initiate a transparent search for a new leader who will prioritize rediscovering and maintaining standards of excellence, openness, and equity, as the Library Board of Trustees stated in their apology letter. I fear anything outside of this demand will continue leadership that is contrary and misaligned to the board's strategic plan. I personally believe in the board, while also believing decisions the board makes in the next few days and upcoming weeks will determine the future of the Oak Park Public Library. These decisions depend on the board's commitment in fostering a truly equitable and just environment. I implore the board to stand with their identified mission and foster a needed leadership change. I'm Anthony Clark, Director, Suburban Unity Alliance. Is there any, good evening. Please accept this email as public comment for the recent events concerning the library's role in both community connectedness and what seems to be less than professional treatment of other staff persons. As a longtime resident of Oak Park, I value resources and support of the librarians. We have appreciated the connectedness to community, both in support of such things as ethnic cultural events as well as providing for community needs. The actions in the past weeks revealing what appears to be mistreatment of library staff, reduction in valuable programs and departments, parentheses, restorative justice, diversity, equity, inclusion, close parentheses, and a very unprofessional retaliation from the executive director for dismissiveness of community members who have expressed concern about feeling marginalized and other through the recent cultural event of the library. This is not a concern or issue with staff members as they appear to be feeling the brunt of the ire of the executive director. I will also say that I this one that I greatly support cultural programming in various capacities since I've lived in Oak Park for the last 20 years. She is very clearly dedicated to uplifting and invested in supporting cultural events and access to resources in many ways. And that is so valued, not only by myself, but many other community members. To know that we have such staff members at our library is priceless. To think that her role, work, or position may be jeopardized, among others, due to budgetary concerns is unacceptable and garbage friendly. The library is a community resource, not a multinational corporation. It is also a community tool and reflection of the desires and demands of the community. I demand that this library maintain its connection to both open access to cultural programming and all the supports the library should provide, but also to maintain its restorative justice programming and department. This is not Walmart where profits are king and ethics and professionalism are secondary. This is a library for heaven's sake. The community is clearly speaking out, telling you this is what we demand and expect to stay in place. That we have been vilified for speaking when I've been told that we are false. It's a very odd retaliatory email alleging to well so-called myths. Let's think about that they are false because you say they are and I find that. The executive director's lack of transparency, unprofessionalism, and contradictory statements as of late are very troubling to say the least. You shared a really odd email recently about your comments. Reported facts in the allegations made by the community members, also claiming there is a huge budget crisis at the library causing your actions that have been called into independent audit. Faculty discovered was not only a crisis, but there was a budget surplus. There is a convenient strategy for administrators to do what they wish under the guise of budget issues. The treatment of staff and alleged reshuffling of positions and people are just one concern. The other will, I'm sure, be addressed by others tonight. The differential discriminatory treatment of a Palestinian cultural event that you, the executive director, are now blaming on one of your staff members. You forget many of us know staff members and their ethics, professionalism, and track records. I call foul. It feels quite clear you, Ms. Executive Director, appear to be the real problem. I demand that you resign or that your contract or employment be terminated. The fact that you not only lashed out when the community stood up, but when you also threw your staff under the bus, so to speak, speaks volumes of your ethics and character. I want a new executive director. We as a community deserve so much better than you. And I demand that if you do not resign and the library board encourages that action, you are most certainly not the kind of leadership we want or deserve at our local library. Sincerely, Sharon Boyle. Ruth Brown. I wanted to
Speak up just a little bit.
Okay. Ruth Brown. I wanted to send a quick note of support of good faith efforts to protect the library and the community from any perception that the library is taking sides in conflict in the Middle East. If the library gets pushed into being seen as sided with one group in the war, those who support other groups or multiple groups will obviously feel unwelcome in this shared community space. I hope the library continues to refuse to take sides, keeping the library a safe space for all. There is room to value all cultures, peoples, and religions in the Middle East at the library, as there should be in our community as well. Mandy McGee. Since I can't attend tonight's library meeting, I'm writing this in order to share how deeply disappointed I am in your performance as library board. On February 29th, you sent a letter out apologizing for the harm you've caused to the community and promised to do better. To me, a longtime Oak Park resident and former OPPL employee, this correspondence was yet another in a series of poorly made decisions that reflects a library board that is intrusive and heavily reactionary to the detriment of quality library service. Ever since the beginning of the selection process to hire Jocelyn Bowman Dixon, she has been grossly mistreated. Honestly, I regret not speaking up sooner, as I felt we were lucky she actually accepted the position after the way she was strung along throughout the arduous and unnecessarily lengthy hiring process. Your actions at this point were upsetting and lack of collective self-awareness. I've grown so very weary of folks in the park, especially those who hold elected positions who claim that they are invested in furthering diversity and equity, but then behave in ways that do harm. I have so many issues with the way most recent events have unfolded. I don't know where to begin. There seems to be two issues at play here. Confusion over the delineation of a library event and some disgruntled employees. But at the root of both is a war in which several people with close ties to said employees seem incapable of separating their political and personal affiliations from their civic duties as trustees. As Jocelyn is suffering a double blow as a result. So much for any semblance of restorative justice. It's pretty hard to practice this if you don't have your priorities in order. Based on the public reporting of events alone, it seems pretty clear to me that a few staff members are using a politically charged event as leverage to retaliate against Jocelyn for being called out on their own mistakes and for decisions she's made that perhaps they haven't supported. Wanda Griffin suggested she's never heard the term library-led event, and then proceeded to provide an email to the Wednesday Journal that very clearly indicated this was a lie. She did not support her stance at all. It actually strengthens Jocelyn's side of the story. However, the board has chosen not to stand behind Jocelyn throughout all this, but to instead throw a Black woman in position of leadership to the masses to be attacked. It is unacceptable and yet sadly not terribly surprising considering the history of this board. I'll wrap this up by saying I feel very comfortable speaking my mind about this, obviously, but there were plenty of folks in this community who are watching and may never speak up. However, we all love our local library and we vote. So I implore all of you to take a library board refresher course to help you remember what your duties are, and then carefully consider your actions moving forward. Sincerely, Mandy McGee. Lila Masu. Dear Library Board, thank you for collecting more information on the library and the executive director. I know you are a volunteer board, and this is a lot of unpaid labor for all of you. It shows your dedication to the library and our community, and I appreciate how seriously you are taking this matter. More information can only lead to better decisions, and I look forward to obtaining answers and follow through the reparative actions. Many thanks, Lila Masu. Mika Yamamoto. I'm very concerned with what's happening at the library. The post on the library's website that declared all accusations of wrongdoing false, made it clear that the leadership has no interest in being held accountable. The apology letter that came out after that was not convincing. I hope the board understands that a leadership that responds this way is not one with which the tool of restorative practice would be effective. Jocelyn Bowman Dixon and Susie Wolf are deeply problematic leaders at this institution that is at the heart of our community. Diane Sullivan. Thank you so much for hosting this meeting. I know this is difficult for all present today. Most things that are right to do in life are not easy. That's why I appreciate your work even more. I apologize for being absent. Unfortunately, I'm under the weather and value you all too much to spread germs. That is why I'm planning to say tonight. My name is Diane Sullivan. I offer childcare support and teach art in our community, and many programs I've worked with have benefited greatly from the community engagement team's diligent and passionate work. It's not an exaggeration to state that I have seen hundreds of children benefit from the programs, story times, book bike visits, and general support the CET has provided. When I found out that two members who have directly benefited the children I work with were unceremoniously given the option to take other positions or be terminated, I was simply shocked. This doesn't sound like a library I know. This definitely doesn't sound like something that befits or benefits our community. At the last board meeting, I was deeply impressed with both the board and community members present. Community members passionately, respectfully, and concisely stated the harm that they felt in recent events. Board members listened attentively and took these concerns seriously. However, I was deeply concerned about the administrator's actions, shaking their head in denial and rolling their eyes as community members spoke. As I mentioned, I work with a lot of children, even they understand how disrespectful, dismissive, and damaging these types of reactions are. Coming from a background in social justice and political science, I believe meetings like the one you are hosting today are perfect opportunities to move forward together and build something meaningful. For that to happen, those in power need to be willing to acknowledge their actions, take responsibility for the harm people are telling them that they have caused, apologize for those actions, and ask how they can help. And I teach 3-year-olds to do this. So I feel the library administration should be capable of utilizing such difficult but important tools if their desire is to serve the community. Harm has been done, and now we need to work together to heal. Our choices, I was inspired to write a children's book about the situation, please find it attached. Our choices are simple. Work together to build a new bridge now that one of the CET and community built is torn down, or to let our CET drown in our library with it without any bridges at all. Please ensure the administration will choose to build new bridges in the community, with the community, and to protect its own staff. Mary Pat Morrow. Given the heated nature of debate online, and especially the rush to judgment and repeated calls for the current library executive director, Jocelyn Bolin Dixon, to be dismissed, I feel the need to speak out. Clearly something went wrong here, and a group of people in our community were deeply hurt. To make matters worse, this is a group of people who are experiencing an unimaginable level of stress right now because of the horrific events in Gaza. A place they felt safe came to feel inhospitable to them, and that is terrible. As a neighbor and a community member, I am deeply sorry for that. The library leadership needs to not only apologize, as it is sort of tried to do, but it also needs to figure out what went wrong and figure out how it will prevent this from reoccurring, period, and full stop. What this should not have become is an opportunity to open the floodgates and criticize a Black female executive for every unpopular decision that she has made. And yet, that's what the board has let happen. If this were a man, let alone a white one, I doubt we'd be here. The employees would not have felt as free to come forward and complain. The board would not have been willing to listen. And I doubt the community, as represented on social media, would have been quite as quick to judge. I plead with everyone involved here, all leadership and community members, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Instead, let this be a teachable moment, a moment where everyone learns how important the library's engagement is with the diverse and cultural organizations. Let us figure out how to preserve that while also addressing the budget deficit and the community service needs within the library's 4 walls as well as without. Let us not give up on another female leader of color because she was an easy target. Thank you for your consideration, Mary Pat Morrow. Matthew Brown. I'm writing in regards to recent controversy about the relabeling of a Palestinian cultural event at the library. I know that the executive director has come under fire for her decision to relabel the event, and I wanted to write in support of her efforts. They seem to me to represent a good faith effort to protect a valued community space from controversy, but there are obviously lessons to learn from any unintended harms of how the decision came down. I hope that such events steer clear of entanglement in issues divisive to the community will continue. And that concludes written statements that were received prior to the meeting. We will now proceed on to new business and staff survey. We have previously received, and I spoke with two potential vendors related to a staff survey. Both were referred to me by Monica Harris at Rails as having done work in this before. I typed up my notes related to those meetings, those conversations I had with them. And I can, does anyone want a hard copy of those? I reached out.
We'll take a piece out of it.
The first one is related to, the Charm Foundation. This, they also, did work with the Northwood Public Library. And so, I spoke with them, I think, they use an external service to conduct the actual survey, TTI. To do that, in terms of administering the distribution of questions and collecting responses. The assessment and report is done by Charm Foundation staff. They did send over a sample, of their, basic, survey format. Their evaluation tool, they made it, I spoke with Ashley Ward there, she made it, she wanted to make sure it was very clear that from their perspective, as they engage with an organization, they view that their client is the executive director and not only in gathering information from staff, but working with the director on development. And that, while the board is maybe the one initiating this is how they've, was explaining, that their point of contact and their engagement in the receipt of the report related to the evaluation, the survey, and follow up with that will be directed to the library director and will be shared, those findings will be shared with the board should the library director agree to share them with us. As I said, their perspective is their clients in finding it and surveying for feedback, and then also developing through coaching, which is also a part of their service, to engage with is the director, not the board.
Would this be a broad survey, like all staff, or is it like a 360 review, or?
It would depend on what we could want in that. We could, they defined it as reader groups. So that could be different levels of staff and organization, direct reports, second level, third level, all the way down. But their recommendation is that between 8 and 15 individuals from each rater group that we identify participate. So if we pick only 2 that the focus on that, and not, their recommendation is this would be better described as a census of the thing, but in fact a survey of the staff. And so this would not necessarily, from their perspective, be something that goes out to every single member of the staff. That is their practice.
Then this wouldn't be a long-lasting, permanent in place way for employees to provide feedback. This would be a one-time.
Yes. It does, I get the sense, but I did not ask this specifically, that they have worked with, libraries on an annual basis for this, but I did not think of asking that specific question.
Oh, so it would be recurring?
Yes.
It wouldn't be like. It wouldn't be like random suggestion box where people could drop it.
Yes. So their fee structure is set up as the cost of the survey. Would, including a 1 hour debrief, would be $350. And they also require clients who do the 360 that there would be a setup of coaching sessions that, depending on the number of sessions, 5 sessions is $300, 10 sessions is $520, and 15 is $689.
Sorry, so it's the 350 plus the cost of coaching sessions.
Yes.
Could you,
Oh, sure.
sorry, a little slower.
Sure. I'm sorry.
I'm old and handwriting, it's terrible.
Um,
Oh, is it? I only have one.
I handed it out last week, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's okay.
I don't even know if I wanna get into pricing yet, like,
Yeah.
it seems like both of these, the owner of the information, it would just go straight to the ED, is that right? Did I read that?
The report, the analysis report would go to the director. The submissions data would sit with the vendor,
Right,
not the director would not have access to the survey submissions. That sits with them,
Right.
the director sees the compiled report at the end.
I hear that, I think I would wanna find a third way then, I think.
Okay.
For me,
We haven't.
no, both of them, it looks like are the same, I was scanning the notes, yeah. Unless I'm mistaken, am I right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
why is it that they see the executive director as the client and not the board that engages?
their focus is on the development of the executives and from that, and they're coming from that perspective, it's the executive development.
I hear that. I think I would really, like, I've been thinking a lot about the survey and I know there's conversations about whether there's been harm or not. I think there has clearly been some harm because otherwise folks wouldn't be coming to community members, board members, and former deputy directors. But I would love to get some demographic information from those that complete the survey. And I think that's really fraught with concerns because I also, like, given the conversations around retaliation, I don't want anyone to be targeted for speaking their minds. So I'm really conflicted with the survey, but I don't want to go with any option that goes not to us as a board.
I agree, I think given the level of distrust, I don't think that we would get a fair representation of the picture of what's being experienced. If we have something that, I think something that goes to the ED, given that that's, well, yeah, I just think in this particular situation, I can see why, maybe these might work in other conditions, but in the conditions that we're dealing with, I think it, at least this one, I'm not sure that I saw the other one was going to the ED. If it is, then I feel the same thing.
So I'm the one, so you spoke to Adam Goodman, that doesn't say who that goes to, I don't know. Is that what you were looking at,
I
Christina?
thought I scanned both and it said. Am I wrong on that? Was that not?
It was not our attendance.
Oh,
Complete
okay.
board evaluation and give feedback direction to the ED.
That's about 3 paths forward for us, that's.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Right, that's what I'm saying, I don't think that's how.
I don't think we've gotten them.
So can I also agree that I think it would be best for staff, in the case of the executive director evaluation, for staff feedback to come straight to the board. But I also want to say that I think that should be standard practice, like regardless of who's, what the circumstances are, there should be like, that should just be, I think that should have been in place. I'm not exactly sure. I don't understand all the processes about why that's not always been in place, but I think that given the part of the work that we do as a board,
always is to evaluate the executive director, and then one of the rubrics that we use is their relationship with the staff. I'm not sure that it needs to be specific to this. I mean, I think whatever tool we adopt, we should think about, you know.
Broader, yes,
Yeah.
I think we should think about, something that's ongoing. My experience in DEI work is that some really important kind of cornerstones are to have anonymous pathway for staff to give feedback. Because different people experience things differently. And then the anonymity and the safety of that feedback is treated with absolute trust. And that then actions are taken based on the feedback. Like every time I've looked at any DEI process, those are kind of part of it. So I would also like to, in addition to, and maybe they're not the same solutions, I don't know. But I do think that an ongoing process is something that we should consider seriously. But I do think we also need to deal with the particular conditions that we have right now.
I think the ask was along the lines of making sure that there is safe, anonymous communication, ongoing and accessible. I'm okay, I think I'm okay with that not coming directly to the board holistically. If we're still able to see the data, if we're still able to see the information.
Where would it go to?
I would want to consult her.
Yeah, and I would like to actually suggest that we have two different things that are parallel, but are a little distinct, because on one hand, there is the like review of anonymous staff survey to get a 360 overview. On the other hand, there is whether or not there is the process. And I'm going to just throw this out there that it shouldn't just be on the executive director, but it should be on any library staff or patron, and treatment that is, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to use attorney language, unbecoming of a leader or a staff member, or even like a community member, because not that I want to say that any community member could be or would be, or that any female or male staff has experienced any handsy behavior, but that's also an issue, right? Is I believe we do have a policy about like repeated harassment of staff, you can be asked to leave. So if we have a patron that is repeatedly being abusive to staff, there should also be a mechanism for that. But those are two different things, right? One is very much, hey, how we are evaluating and we are doing our job. And the other one is there a anonymous, and they're both anonymous protected, but anonymous protected mechanism of which inappropriate behavior, whether by patron, leadership, coming up from underneath, is able to be expressed. And really the up from underneath is not as important because of power dynamics. So it's really just like that patron piece and that leadership piece. But those are two different things, and there are two different schools of thoughts on how we develop those. And I think that we need to be cognizant of that difference. And I think what I'm hearing is the desire for both. And I think that we live in a world where that desire is very important, or not the desire, I'm sorry, where the actual movement towards both is essential.
So can I recommend that since this is a special board meeting, that the second one that has to do, we bring that up at our next regular board meeting. And then maybe here we talk about that first piece that has to do with the executive director evaluation, because of course
Yeah.
that's the issue at hand. Right?
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Okay. So, all right, so thank you for that. And what I'm hearing is generally a reluctance and reticence around the structure of communication of the Charm Foundation.
I don't know that the Charm Foundation is the direction that we're going, because I also don't know. It seems that what they're offering is sort of a pathway toward what kind of evaluation, not evaluation, what kind of further development they would offer based off of the responses. And I don't know that that's what we're going for. I think we're more concerned with the responses. And we may have resources to do the further development. I also don't know that we've looked into what kind of development they would provide.
Sure.
And I think the primary concern is getting the information and then from there deciding what kind of development we think is appropriate. But I think with the two he's made, I don't know if it's what we're trying to accomplish.
No, and that's what I was hearing, and I think that's fair, and I agree with, I think that's what, I think it is very fair to say that what they offer is not fitting our situation.
Yeah.
So, secondly, there was Adam Goodman, he is a, member of faculty at Northwestern University. He has worked with, he was also referred to by Monica Arts. He has worked with the Public Library Association, PLA, on their leadership portfolio, leadership development portfolio items. He has also done leadership coaching. He's a former trustee of the Evanston Public Library. He has worked with a number of public entities, park districts, school boards, and public libraries. And you'll see from my notes, discussed a number of things and questions he posed. He wanted to make sure that, I'm not sure. That is just. And the, everything here is we discussed it in public session before. He suggested that, he could, that there were three potential paths forward. I did send in my notes from our discussion so that he could, verify that I didn't miss anything or misrepresent anything in them. So then I checked with him today about the as part of our conversation, he said that if we were to proceed with him, he would want to come and speak with us in person. And that as we begin this process, we want to discuss further his fee for coming to board meetings to discuss with us is $1,500. I asked him what the timeline would be to get a staff survey put together, implemented out to the staff and collect the results. He said it would be, if you see my notes from his response email, would be about 6 weeks, which was also in line for the turnaround time to Charmed. 2 weeks to build it, 2 weeks for response to complete, and then 2 weeks to analyze. He says that it is realistically, it is not, it says realistically takes 4 months or longer, depending on how much input the board and others want in the construction of the survey.
So meaning we have to have that sold
Yes,
if we want to meet the 6 week.
yes.
Okay.
And this looks like it is full staff? Or how does this one?
This would be dependent on what we want. He was, he said he has structured staff surveys in a number of different, levels where it's, you know, a small subset, a random subset of staff. It's a full staff, it's, you know, just certain departments are surveyed, it kind of depends on what we are looking for. But he was, you know, so, and we'll see here, he also says, analysis could take longer than 2 weeks, depending on the number of respondents. If we don't get a large number, that, you know, follow up to encourage further participation could drag that 2 weeks out longer, depending on the response rate. He holds the data. The response goes through him, sits with him. It does not sit within the library. And the board gets the report.
Do we know how you would be reaching out to staff?
He has, survey software, systems that he implements that create and collect that would be outside of any, vendors that we use for, because he's familiar with our, Net Promoter Score system, and he doesn't use that. And he said, and I mentioned that we use HR Source, and he said that he doesn't utilize them either, so it's nothing that we currently, contract with, and it would be and it's it would be a system contracted and held by him, not by us.
And this is survey only, this is not follow up with any sort of development goal.
He offers that, but it's not required.
Do we have any, do you provide an example of what one would look like? Or
He did not.
I think that's where the board participation will determine the timeline piece comes in is.
Yeah.
We did the very minimum, like to tell him what we want to know or what we want to have asked and allow him to wordsmith it in a way that would be the, I don't know, the most accurate or most neutral for folks to respond to. But again, he may come back and say, no, I need exact wording for. That'll take a minute.
And I get, and you know, if the consensus is to, have an action item to vote on any particular, vendor tonight. But if the consensus is to pursue him, or I did speak with a third, firm today, like this afternoon, that I'll briefly get into, in a moment. We can reach out to him and ask for like a detailed proposal draft, you know, example surveys that he has used in the past that we can start to look at and base off of, and then, if that's where, and if everyone is comfortable with that, we can either do, you know, pursuing with him or with somebody else, do another special meeting where then all we really need is a quorum to approve hiring someone, or we can wait till our regular meeting at the end of the month to begin that. So.
I also was given the name of, that I haven't had a chance to do any vetting on or anything, but, yardstick management, diverse pets, they do some work. In this area. Yeah, like I said, I learned it shortly before the meeting, so.
Okay. The third one that I spoke to today is a communications firm, and there was two parts of the conversation. I'll speak to this part now, and then the second part in the closed session. It's just local Terman. They do communications work with a variety of entities, businesses, public bodies, library districts, school districts across the country, municipalities. And one of the things that they do offer is staff surveys, not just engagements that, but, in-depth that they can do that. They're gonna be sending some information in the morning, like a draft like agreement letter delineating what they charge hourly. There would be 2 members of their staff that would be tasked, to work with us, and they would work directly with the board. On any survey project, and they would conduct it, they would hold it, and deliver the report to the board. I don't have a number on their hourly rate, but.
Do you have a timeframe?
They said about 6 to 7 weeks from the time we engage them to, turn it around. Again, depending on edits that the board wants in the language, but they are very. I spoke with Jeff Spolka, who is the CEO of the company, for reference, his son is the former communications director for D97, who was there for about 10 years. I've heard Jeff Spolka term for, in many conversations over the years. I've never worked with them or dealt with anybody with them, but I do know the name. I've seen them a lot in a lot of press releases about communication plans and organization consulting.
And they would possibly have like a more out of the box solution where they have something already created that they're tweaking versus coming up with something from scratch.
I would expect so. They're a national firm. They do, I mean, he was talking about how he was just down working with a number of libraries in Florida on the issues that on public libraries that they're facing down there. So I do know that, they've got the bandwidth, they've got the experience to do that. I think Adam probably has some stuff as well. We can ask him for that to compare. And of course, I'm happy to try, or if somebody else wants to reach out to Yardstick, if they have the ability to reach out with them. Tomorrow, I've got a very busy day at work tomorrow. I will not be able to. I could do some emails tonight to start a conversation with them to try and coordinate something, but I will not be able to give you, I don't think I'll be able to take any time to make phone calls over to them, and tomorrow, if somebody wants to take that on to reach out to them to see that, I would welcome, and I'm open to anyone stepping up on that.
I guess I just am curious what we are hoping, what are our objectives when we're looking at different vendors for this? I know what mine are, but as a board, what are we hoping for? Both to glean and also process wise to be involved. Cause I think that would determine, for me, if we go with Adam or someone else, is it price? Is it, what are the most important factors to consider here?
I think we have to be cognizant of price, but I think the other thing that I'm really thinking about is making sure that whomever we choose, everyone in the library has an equitable chance to be able to contribute. I think that's part of why we're having this conversation, is there has been unequal communication across things. So my hope is that whatever item we decide on, that it is accessible to all staff, as opposed to doing a selection, or that was another part of the charm that I didn't feel comfortable with, gathering cohorts. And I don't feel like 150 folks is big enough for us to try to gather cohorts, or that we should be picking those cohorts. I feel like that leads us back into the same mire we're sitting in now. So that's my primary objective, is making sure that whatever is available, number one, that the staff feels comfortable with the method that we're choosing. And secondly, that everyone in the staff feels like it's accessible to them and that they feel comfortable contributing to it.
Yeah, I think the staff feeling comfortable with it and trusting the anonymity. And one of the questions I have when you're talking about that they hold the data, they own it, and we get a report, is what is the process of taking from the data and the responses to the report, and would we be able to get access to more information, if we have questions on the report, just kind of what, like that, and there is a privacy issue.
Yeah.
And so I don't want, I know.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, that means that we can figure out.
I know.
Oh, this is really-
I'm not saying it has to be able to get, but it's important that it is filtered that way.
Yeah.
For anonymity. And then how is it being filtered for us to get the report?
Yeah.
And are we missing? Yeah,
That's the struggle I'm having. It's like, I want some identifying information because I think if there is a pattern of treatment differences, like I want to be able to decipher that. Like I want to know like general.
Maybe you just make that part of the ask up front and say
Yeah.
like, this is, we understand that these kinds of demographics can sometimes be identifying. But these are, we are most likely specifically speaking to DEI type issues. This can't be their first rodeo. Like, how do you get the demographic information to folks without disclosing or without making
What
it
are
so
the
it's
protections?
passion?
So that we can,
Yeah.
one of the questions I have is, breaking is like seeing big picture versus subsets and like, I think, one of, I did a many years ago, when I was at DNR, I health administrator and a staff server. And one of the things was, we had like two people in one division, in like the one enforcement thing, it was like. We could tell, who would, like, so you can't say, well, this was the satisfaction rate in this department because there's two people. And it's like, it's 100% one way or 50-50, and like, well, I think I know how it's going, so I think that's maybe a question of how do we see the big picture without, with also seeing like. That, how is it broken out to those groups without giving up anonymity?
I think we don't need to random. I feel like we're selecting professionals specifically so that we don't have to track these
We
solutions.
want to select professionals that have a track record with a deep understanding of DEI.
Right, I think we go to them with questions, then the information that we know that we want to be able to glean from the information, and then say, how do you get us there?
Yeah.
While protecting this information in a way that we think is important. Because, I don't want to get in.
Yeah. Not an easy.
Because it's, us knowing too much is the same as staff knowing too much.
I was gonna say, and that gets rid of the anonymity that asked for, right, which is right, and not having anonymity with us is no better than not having anonymity elsewhere.
And if they, and with lack of trust in the anonymity, then we will not get accurate picture.
Yeah.
And I think, and then that brings me back to the thing that Adam Goodman said, is that we have to accept that. His quote was, whatever tool we use, whatever system we use, whoever survey folks we use, we will not find truth. Those were his words.
I don't think maybe,
Okay.
I don't know.
We're only going to get we're only gonna get information from those who participate. We're never going to get a full picture of the full scope of experience in this organization. And that if we are looking for some kind of objective truth, that we need to like be ready to not get that.
I think there's a difference between objective truth and more objective truth, which is to say that, like, which is to say that it's not final, but we should still be trying for more information and more accuracy than anecdotal information.
I think he was trying to frame it so that we have a realistic expectation as to what we are going to receive from staff, no matter who we use.
I think the other part of it is though that it is not only about the information that we receive, it is about the fact that this was an ask made of us and us attempting to fulfill it to the best of our ability. I think there is, in part for staff, the value of that, that we are trying to fulfill that to the best of our ability. And so, yes, we know we will only get responses from those who respond, that's the nature of service. But I think part of it that obviously is not their part to think about is that the reason behind us doing this is because it was asked of us to do. So there's value in that upfront as long as we do it well and correctly to the best of our ability with all of the capabilities of anonymity that we can provide.
But also that we've got whether we use
Yeah.
and interview and all the things that we need to make sure. But
There is competing, though there's a tension, right? Like, I want to do due diligence, but we also want to move quickly. It seems the fairest thing to do, not just to community members who are showing up, but to staff members who are taking a chance and coming and speaking to us publicly, and also to our executive director to just, like we owe
yeah,
everybody.
and the tension we've been living in. That's just not gonna continue.
That is the world.
Yeah, I know, but like,
I appreciate.
but then, so I just feel like for every time we articulate one side of the tension, we should also try and figure out
Yeah.
how we can best address the other one too.
I mean, I think we've all given us very similar timelines, which is.
67 weeks.
I was gonna say it's 6 weeks, but in my world, 6 weeks always eight.
Yeah,
So, and.
and we do have, and I would say, like, one of the constraints that we as a public entity, a board face with this, as opposed to saying, it being initiated by a nonprofit or a business or by the executive director doing it, we have obligations, legal obligations to the Open Meetings Act.
Yeah.
That constrict how we meet and how we discuss this.
Yes, that's what we're actually stating, because I'm not sure how much of the public, is aware that we have we have to get 48 hours notice for a meeting, and I think that's good if anybody does review this. Unfortunately, we've lost our public in person right now, but if people review it to understand that a lot of those constraints are, add to that tension for us, and that it doesn't mean that we.
Right, and we can't just like get information and decide over email who we want to go with, that we should.
We can't just decide to have a meeting.
Yeah,
Right, there is, the public has to be given notice of us meeting to discuss business so that they have a chance to attend or share their perspectives on it based off the agenda.
And we have to be cognizant of the space that the library is already using for other things that they're doing, and where do they put us when we decide.
and also staff who show up and stay after we're done with our meetings.
We're doing jobs, so, we're not, it's not like this is like a nonprofit doing it or a corporation doing it, that would.
During business hours.
This, we're trying to fit 7 people into these constraints with the 48 hours and everything. I think it's worth stating.
Sorry, do we think we can have enough information by the regular board meeting on the last 3 options disseminated to us to review individually, that we would feel comfortable making a decision at the next board meeting to choose a vendor?
What's the actual date of the
The
board?
26th. It's a week after the primary election.
It's the middle of spring break, it's not.
Yes.
Yes, I'm actually in India.
You're gonna join by Zoom though, right?
It seems like we have questions that we could, like, for our vendors, if we want to go back to Adam or whoever, or if there's new ones. So can we just kind of formulate those questions and then find out which vendors and then have that information ready for the next board meeting?
Yeah, and I think, and I think if depending, and I will also put this out there, if there is, and then really, here's the thing, I think we also should be ready at that next board meeting to, if we are gonna vote on that at that meeting, be ready to set a special meeting soon after, possibly the week after, so that we can have an initial meeting with that vendor to begin that process. You know, that is focused exclusively on construction of the survey, and what we would do there, because it's, if we're gonna, I'm comfortable waiting till the 26th to gather more information from Yardstick and from the school tournament on it and that, but I do think that if the 26th is when we make that decision, that we be ready to like hit the ground running and jump right into a meeting of that character and be ready, and you know, maybe it's the Saturday after, or probably not, because I think my daughter's birthday party.
I'm also okay, if we want to do a special meeting the week before, if we think we can gather all the information. Right now, I know,
Do you wanna do it on election day so we can watch Matt's head explode or like?
I don't know if we'd have enough time. It seems like we have to formulate questions, get it to the vendors, and then get their responses back.
That's the other thing, these
Yeah.
vendors are not living in the pressure cooker of time that we are, it's their day job, they're going to respond to
Yeah.
us
Yeah,
in the
we,
cadence of their day job.
they are the sole vendor we are hiring, we are not the only client they have,
Right.
you know.
So I think
that's-
it's realistic to have it be at the next board meeting.
Okay,
Did either of the two vendors you've spoken to so far give us a timeline of when they can engage? Because sometimes it's like, it'll
Oh,
take
yeah.
6 months.
yes,
before-
people tournament is like, you know, like, if you guys had an agenda item and approved it tonight, we could be meeting with you next week.
Okay,
And Adam, like, I emailed him this morning on my way to work, and I had a response from him at noon.
okay,
So he's, I mean, he's got his work at the university, but
yeah.
my conversation with him, when I talked with him on, like, on the 15th, and the email today, I feel like he's ready to move as well. But I can verify that if he can jump in as soon as we get started, I can get that explicitly in writing from him.
This is one of our questions, yeah.
When, yeah,
So can we finesse the questions via email?
I would say
No?
send me,
So say, can we send?
Send it to-
List related.
and I will put it together and redistribute it to the board for everyone to review, because people might have duplicative questions, and I can work them together or if,
What about a Google Doc?
yeah,
Come on, what?
it's,
It can get real messy.
it can-
Sure, we'll use suggesting one, it'll be fun.
unless someone else wants to take on,
I'm
I'd like that,
really fun.
because I've got 11.5 days to look. So,
I could do that,
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, so, questions for vendors, will be sent to Christina. Christina will compile them, into a list.
Maybe like by next Friday, then we have them. Is that enough, or how much time do you all need for that?
8. 10.
Because that would give them about
Matt.
2 weeks.
Did you keep a document of the questions you asked vendor one and vendor two, potential vendor one and vendor two?
I have handwritten notes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
if that list lives in your brain, can you export it onto the list that you sent to Christine?
Yeah, I will pull that. I did, this is a typed up version of a lot of that, but I'll revisit my.
I think that there's an importance to a certain amount of continuity. And I worry it's like, okay, we asked Mr. Adam Goodman, like 20 questions, and then based on the,
Yeah.
it's our 7, we asked the next 2 vendors 752 questions, at which point neither vendor wants to know all about Adam.
Fair enough.
For sure. I feel attacked by how accurate that.
So Christina, you're saying if we have questions due by March 15th,
Well, I'm asking you all what you need. Maybe we don't need that much time, I
I
don't.
can get you myself up.
I think we might want to move a little faster, given that we are in the first week
Yeah.
of March and in the fourth week of March, we have our next board meeting, when we have given ourselves a deadline.
I think if we can get
Just send it to me by Monday.
End of day Monday.
end of day Monday with Christina, so that then she has time to put together and we can send it to Adam and Jessica will determine
Yeah,
to give, and yardstick if
And I may have one other too, right?
if they can, get, responses back to us in time for us to consider at the 26th. I think that's rational.
And so if I get them on the 11th, I can pile them, I send them back to y'all, just to make, or no, I just.
I think,
Final's judgment, like.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think I'm okay with your executive direction.
yeah,
and then I'll send it probably to you since you're the
Yeah,
contact.
yeah.
Vendors, okay.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
I already wrote a bunch of questions, so I
Oh.
feel like I'm halfway there.
I'll reach out just to find out general information from a couple of the people that I've got.
all right, with that, we have our next steps related to the staff survey. Is there a motion to enter closed section to discuss topics of review of the executive director and potential, for, contracts engaging with the board for vendor service?
So moved.
Is there a second? Seconded by Maya. Will the secretary please take the roll call vote?
Trustee Bloom,
Yes.
trustee Van Gogh,
Yes.
trustee Chakraborty,
Yes.
trustee. No, I want to just repeat your last name. What the heck? It's Christie.
That's right.
It's Rogers. Rogers, what the?
It's like,
Yeah.
Trustee Fairfax, yes, and trustee Britt.
Yes. We will take a few minutes.
Trustee Fox.
Oh, trustee Fox.
Trustee Bob. We lose Ted.
Ted, are you there?
Are you on mute?
Are you muted? Ted?
Yes, I'm trying to find the mute button. Yes.
All right, so we will go into a closed session. Does anybody need a few minutes to charge lights and refresh themselves? Okay. And we'll also clear the.